All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I'm Is There No One Else? And in today's video, we are going to talk about the November reveal that Ashes of Creation just dropped a few days ago. November reveal for Ashes of Creation started off with a bang. They revealed the cleric for the first time, which is one of the 8 archetypes that exist in Ashes. In this video, we'll go through what Steven Sharif and the development team showed us with the cleric, what they showed with the night and day mechanics, as well as some exciting bits of combat detail that foreshadows why so many people, myself included, why so many of us are so excited about this upcoming MMO. Now, let's dive into it. The first thing that they revealed during this live stream, during the gameplay portion of the live stream, was the Elk Mount. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I am not a sucker for many in-game cosmetics. I'm not one of those people that needs every single mount, that I need everything. But a good elk mount will get me every single time. It really will. And this one is pretty freaking awesome. I think it's just, I just want an elk mount from Lord of the Rings, where you just ride around on this big fucking elk all the time. And if I can get that in a game, I'm pretty happy. And this was an unexpected surprise for me. So I wanted to briefly touch on it and kind of show it. I thought it looked pretty sick. And so, yeah, I like elk mounts. That is not changing. Second thing, well, the more important stuff is combat. Many Ashes fans were wondering what the November showcase would be with the delayed live stream. And the Ashes team did not disappoint with one of their archetype reveals, the cleric. If you're curious about the other 7 archetypes in the Ashes of Creation and how all 8 of them combine to create 64 different classes, I did a video on the archetypes a few weeks back, and you can find that video linked here and in the description. The cleric archetype is a support class, specialized in the healing and support of group members. Since Ashes of Creation wants to bring back more of a group-based MMO, a support archetype such as the cleric will be very valuable. One of the main complaints of Steven Sharif and Intrepid Studios, and part of the reason why he wanted to come out and create his own game, was that he feels that MMOs have lost that touch with coordination and working with people and that community aspect and working together towards goals. And so it's his goal to set out and create an MMO more like that. Not a solo MMO experience. He doesn't believe that solo and MMO go together. And so I think that's pretty interesting. And I think that has interesting points of view. Like when you're coming from that perspective, from a macro perspective, and looking at designing a game, you want to make sure all the classes, the support, the tank, all these sorts of things have value. Because if you want to make sure that they're providing a lot of value, because you want to provide that incentive for people to talk to each other and group up and work together. And so that's why the cleric reveal was so exciting. In the background are some of the skills and animation abilities being casted. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know what these skills are, what they do, how powerful they are, or anything like that. I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to show you what they are. I want to show you what the animations are. And I wanted to remind you guys, this is pre-alpha 2. Some of you guys are going to, I think the animations look really cool. I think they look awesome, but these are far from a finished product. So even if you like them as much as I do, this is probably not what they're going to look like when they go live. If you don't like them, this is probably not what they're going to look like when they go live. Like that, I mean, the game is a healthy amount of ways out from actually being, a live game. So I do think it looks good personally, but that is that's a personal preference. But yeah. Let's, I don't want to talk too much about the skills and abilities. I just wanted to show that in the background. I wanted to talk about some things that they brought up in the live stream. And so one of the things that they brought up that I wanted to talk about in this video is they added a resource to the cleric class called Conviction. And basically, different skills and abilities for the cleric will have different ways to stack Conviction. So depending on what skill and ability you use, depends on how you're going to get this conviction. And I know you guys are wondering, what the hell is conviction? Well, basically this resource it seems to me it's almost like it's a way to amplify the class. And so if you stack this conviction, you can then use it later for more powerful healing. You can also use it on certain grounded AoE abilities that can heal your allies and then damage enemies. It's just a way to reward predictive combat. One of the things that they talked about is for support, you have reactionary and you have predictive. And if you've ever played a support class in a PvP or PvE environment, there's often situations where you want to lay down certain abilities and stuff before you go into combat, before you encounter what you're going to encounter, because you don't want your team to take the brunt of, what is to come. And so they want to reward that predictive style combat with conviction. And I think this is really interesting. I think this is a really interesting tidbit, and I wanted to dive a little bit more. That's basically what they said, and now I want to explain to you guys why I like this so much and why I'm excited for stuff like this, because this is a resource just for the clerics. Like it's its own thing, and I think that's really cool that they go that far into it. And what this also does, in my opinion, is it raises the skill gap for clerics. And tell me if you've heard this before, if you've played this in another MMO, where a support class has it has a low floor, like it's easy to figure out, relatively easy to figure out. It also has a pretty low ceiling. So you have this support class that, although it is valuable, it's just not as enjoyable. And you see it all the time, like in certain MMOs or in some of the MMOs that I've played in the past, where people don't want to be support classes because it's kind of boring. Sometimes the dungeons or the encounters aren't exciting enough for the healers or tanks, and it's not as much fun. Or the healing ceiling is too low, and you just don't feel like you're advancing any further as a support class. That's a long tangent to go out on, but that's why conviction is so cool. It's because I think what this will end up doing is I think it's going to separate clerics among other clerics. It's a way of raising the overall ceiling for a support class from how they're interpreting it. Like, if you're better at being predictive in combat, predicting what you need to lay down in certain situations and stacking more conviction, you're going to be able to provide more powerful heals to your allies. One of the heals that they had is when you use conviction with it, you then heal one extra person. Those types of things make you stand out as a support class, as a cleric over other clerics. And so it's going to add a lot more nuance, and a lot more in-game creativity from players. And that just expands the overall enjoyment of playing a class. Like when you have that sort of thing and it's interpretive and it's up for debate as the best time to use, a resource like this in different situations, it's going to open up more playing styles. It's going to open up a higher learning curve, a longer learning curve, and you're going to have more enjoyment, because when you do figure it out, when you do get these sorts of things, you get rewarded, and it's going to stand out with your teammates too. Like these sorts of things, your teammates are going to notice the difference between like a really good cleric support healer and a not so good one, because you're utilizing these situations better than others. And so I think that sort of thing is cool. Like, if you're playing this type of game, you have some sort of, competitive drive to be good at your class, and this is going to allow you to separate. And even if you initially don't start off that good with it, you get to see your progress. You get to see these sorts of things branching out and everything. And I think that's really cool. And so this is one detail on one of the 8 archetypes for this game. And so the attention to detail to try to make these sorts of things interesting for the players has me very, very excited about seeing the other archetypes in the game and what they're going to do in a similar fashion. How to make these things interesting, like the bard or other supports like the tank. Like, how are they going to provide these things? How are they going to provide support in a PvX environment that is not only fun, is fun to figure out, and is fun to open for interpretation as to how to get better and improve. These types of things are very, very exciting to talk about. They're very fun, and it's very cool to see like a lot of these different archetypes and eventually classes start to take their shape. And so, yeah, just leaves me wanting more. Like I just want to see more. Now, that's what they talked about with the cleric. You guys see that video with the cleric. Let's talk about the other updates that they revealed. They decided to show the night and day mechanics on Vera. And so in the background, you get to see the animation. They sped up the process to show night and day on the Ashes of Creation world, which is called Vera. And it looks pretty cool. I think it looks great. I think I think they did a lot of the art and design team did a good job. Once again, this is the Alpha 2, so I can only imagine what this game's going to look like as they get further and further into their design and everything, but it already looks pretty awesome to me. They also touched on a few tidbits for the night and day mechanics, and they said that some resources will only be able to be harvested at certain times of the day, so either at night or during the day. Depends on what the resource is, and some NPCs will have different mechanics. And so if you have, they showed undead in this, they might have something like vampires. They might have something where they're a lot stronger at night than they are during the day. And so I'm excited to see what they do with that, what they do with the NPCs, how they incorporate that. I thought that was a pretty cool aesthetic thing. Aesthetics are all up for interpretation. What I think looks cool, you guys might not, and that's fine. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. I want to ask you guys what you guys think, of course. So leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this. But yeah, I think it looks cool. After that, they went into a Q&A, just a rapid fire Q&A, and there's a lot of good details. I'll provide a link in the description to this entire video if you guys want to check it out. But there's 2 Q&A questions that I wanted to cover. And as once again, they pertain to combat. One question was asked about debuff stuns. Like, is there going to be a cooldown? They showed in this video, they showed these coordinating mechanics. And so if you go back and you look, the fighter used this whirling blades technique, and it was basically designed to forget the word for it, but it provided a debuff to the enemies, and then the cleric dropped his big AoE synergy, and then it ends up, if you stack that after the original, it ends up stunning all the opponents in that area. And so the concern in that environment is for large outnumbered open world PvP, can you stun lock people? Can you have your fighters go in and just spin and provide this debuff while you have clerics in the background stun locking off of cooldown? Because it's not fun to be stun locked. These types of mechanics can be really annoying to deal with. I'm going to talk a little bit about both of these in this video, but they asked Stephen Sharif about this, and Stephen Sharif said this.
Nova Chrono wants to know about large-scale combat. Have you given any thought towards adding debuff protection, such as having immunity to stuns for some seconds after having been stunned during a siege battle? And there was actually some questions regarding this beyond just sieges.
So just to be clear, what you're talking about is really called diminishing returns. And when it comes to status conditions, the ability to apply certain passive resistance to status conditions, if you've suffered from a status condition of a particular type, you get an increased resistance against those, and that scales. So if by chance you do get stunned maybe a couple of times, excuse me, it would be near impossible to stun you for a third or fourth time, right? And then you get to save that higher resistance for some period of time. And that just makes the gameplay more compelling. We've all played games where you can get stun locked, and that is a really bad feeling.
Which overall, I think that's a very interesting way to go about doing things, providing, like, if you're getting stunned a lot, you have diminishing returns on it. I think that's a good idea to dissuade people from utilizing the same mechanics over and over again, abusing one specific mechanic. Like, combat should be a flow of different skills and abilities, not just one or two. And so I think that's great. I think that's great that they looked into these things once again. We'll have to test it when Alpha 2 comes out to see how powerful these things are, if the diminishing returns are good enough. But we'll see. We'll see. The other interesting aspect of this is, once again, they're providing more powerful buffs to people that are working together. And it's not just buffs for people that are running in large groups. You're already at a benefit of running in a large group. You have more people. Like, if you're running in a larger group than the people you're fighting against, you have more people. Like, you have more resources, you have more damage, just by design of having more people. But they also added this effect that if you work well together, you get these different sorts of stacking mechanics. Like I just talked about here, with the fighter using his, swinging blade to provide a debuff to the opponents, and then the cleric coming in with the heal to stun everybody. That's 2 people coordinating the same skill in a specific area for an effect. It takes coordination and effort among teammates. that is a skill gap technique among two players. That is something that not everybody will be able to do. And so I think that's awesome. I think that's really cool to see. I think that sort of combat lends itself to group PvP in general. You know, it's not just a benefit for larger groups. That's a benefit for any group to learn how to stack these buffs and debuffs in a way to be more effective in combat. So a 4-man group working well and stacking specific buffs to maximize their effect in a point at a choke or at a point of attack is going to be extremely valuable. And I think that's going to be really cool to see how it fleshes out among all classes, looking at how you can stack different buffs and debuffs in an effective way. And it very well could be the case, like in 4-man, 5-man group content, depending on how large of a group you want to run in, it might change what your composition is. And so that's really kind of cool to talk about. That's all just one detail, guys. I know. Like these sorts of things are really, really cool. Coming from a PvP player such as myself, like this interactive, cooperative form of combat, being buffed by working better together, I think is really cool. And once again, that you see Steven Sharif's, idea coming into fruition with combat design. He wants people to work together. If you work together, you get rewarded. Like I think these are really, really cool ideas that will have to be fleshed out, obviously, during testing. And finally, the last detail that I wanted to show is this Q&A. They were asking about, they were showing the heals and they were showing going through and doing all these mechanics and stuff. And so people were asking, what types of targeting, what types of interactive gameplay are you using here? What will you have? And Stevens responded with this.
And I saw quite a few folks asking this, but Falcon Swiftblade asked, is Steven using mouse overcasting? Can we hover over players also? So what are the ways that I can interact UI-wise in order to heal as a healer?
Absolutely. So one of the big goals of our UI team is to, and our design team is to accommodate a whole host of different types of user options that they're capable of setting, because we all have different play styles. And in that regard, those include things like hover overcasting, double tap application of AoE effects on cursor, location, just a lot of different options because people like to play different ways.
And once again, like this sort of attention to detail, I think is really cool. Like just listening to player feedback, providing these different avenues for different types of targeting for different players, because certain players like different types of combat better. It's such a cool thing to see. And when you're making players happy in a game, they're going to continue to play it because the development team listens to feedback and they listen to these things and they try to cater and they try to provide things that the community wants. And being able to branch out and provide and have this consideration to the community towards these different types of combat is very, very cool to see. It's not just, hey, this is the way the game is, enjoy it or not. It's, hey, you might enjoy this or this, but if this is your favorite way to play, you'll be able to play this way. And so I think those things are really cool. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this video here. Let me know in the comment section what you liked, what you didn't like. I will be doing more Ashes videos in the future, just going through different systems and stuff. And if you want to do that, or you want to watch those sorts of things, leave a like maybe. It'll help with the algorithm. Leave a subscribe. I will be posting quite a bit more content as we get further and further down the road. And obviously once Alpha 2 comes out, I will be posting a lot of different combat details and video details when I get my hands on it. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.